Okay. So for those of you joining Dr. Fawcett's webinar, we're not Dr. David. So my colleague Scott Brassart and I are here, and we're thrilled to be here. We've done this before and we enjoy it, but we've got some new offerings on seekingintegrity.com. The next men's work group will begin on October 3rd, and Scott will be leading that one. So if you haven't already joined one and would like to, that information is on seekingintegrity.com. The women's work group, Lacey Bentley, who has the groups for women on Tuesday night and Thursday night, will be leading a similar group just for women on September 25th. Had to think about it, but she's has that offering. So these are 90-minute sessions for 6 weeks going through the Sex Addiction 101 workbook. Scott has led multiple groups, and the feedback has been very positive and favorable. So I think it's a great offering, but we are very excited. We're going to begin on November 7th, a new couples work group that will be a facilitated group for couples talking about various topics, but also having the ability to interact, with the very qualified therapist who will be leading that. So that information is also being posted on seekingintegrity.com. That will be limited to no more than 15 couples. That one's a smaller group. So if you're interested in any of those resources, check them out on the website. But of course, always reach out to Tami, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com if you've got questions. And Scott, my colleague who is amazing and has all kinds of he does what you don't know about Scott. You see him on this, but what you don't know about Scott is basically every piece of content that goes on the website or blogs that are posted on Psychology Today or anything that has any written words other than my emails. Scott has a hand in it. So I value him for lots of reasons, but that is always just amazing to me. I can send him something and go, I need help. So what topic are you talking about tonight, Scott?
Well, first of all, since you were so nice to me, Tami makes the best cakes ever. So call her before your birthday.
I would love to bake. I haven't been able to do it during COVID because we just eat it all. So yes, I
wanted to actually, because I wasn't sure if I was going to fill in for the work group tonight or this. So the work group is learning about denial tonight. So I thought, well, maybe we'll talk about denial for a few minutes. And Tami is in recovery as well, although not for this.
So doesn't matter. I look at it as it does. So yeah. I'll share this. The former head of ASAM, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, I was in a meeting with him years ago, and he said there is no S in addiction. Addiction is addiction. And I was like, oh, because it doesn't matter, and too many people are using this and this and this and this. And so I really want us to heal at the core. And if we're in denial about one aspect, we're in denial about the whole thing. So rock on, Scott.
Okay. So, and jump in anytime you want, which was the point of that. So denial, if you're on this webinar, you have probably heard the word denial once or twice, either directed at you or directed from you at someone you love. This is one of my favorite topics because I was so deep in denial when I got into recovery. It was ridiculous. I define denial as a series of internal lies and deceits that manifest eventually externally. Denial starts in my head long before it comes out of my mouth. I have to lie to myself before I can lie to you, effectively anyway. Dr. Rob's definition of denial is don't even know I am lying, which you have to throw a K in front of the N, but either one of those, they're both accurate because as an addict, when I'm in denial, I don't know that I'm lying because I have lied to myself so thoroughly that I've started to believe my own lies. And that's why it's so easy for me to lie to you. Because we can lie to ourselves and do it so well, our behaviors seem utterly reasonable to us. If I looked at someone else, if Tami was engaging in the same behaviors I was engaging in my addiction, I would say, wow, that girl has a problem. She needs help. but it was okay for me because dot, 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 and just fill it in with anything. It's okay for me because I'm different, I'm unique, I'm this, I'm that, I deserve blah, 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 blah. And that is the crux of denial. I've told this story on this webinar before. When I was in treatment 20 plus years ago, long before Seeking Integrity even existed, the therapist there had me write out all of my becauses. It's okay for me because, and I had a list of about 50 of them. And then she had me read them out loud to the therapy group there. And by the end of it, I was mortified because all I heard coming out of my mouth was crazy. And I could see it in the eyes of the people listening, like, you're crazy. But I had to do that exercise, and I still would, could go right back into denial. So there's a bunch of forms of denial. I don't want to take too much time with this, but with sex addicts in particular, we externalize. That means we blame. Well, if you were nicer to me, I wouldn't blah blah blah. You gained 3 pounds and I no longer find you attractive. Well, BS. You don't pay enough attention to me. It's all about you, which is why I behave the way I do. It's never my choice. So that's the first form of denial. And addicts, we're so good at blame, externalization. Then we have entitlements. I work so hard and nobody ever says thank you. I'm just going to stop off at the massage parlor on the way home. No one will know. I deserve it. Entitlement. Justification. This is one I actually heard this morning in a group for people, our group for professionals who are also in sex addiction. I go to that because I'm also a recovering sex addict. And one of the guys, we laughed at himself. He said, for a while there I was single and I justified it. If I was married, I'd be having sex every night if I wanted to. So why not when I'm single? Why not? And, forgetting that he was, putting 6 hours a day into the chase, and it was just destroying his life, but he justified it. Minimization, all I'm doing is drinking. It's not like I'm shooting meth. How many alcoholics have well, drinking is legal. Yeah, not the way you do it. That's minimization. Rationalization. This is a big one with porn addicts. Everybody looks at porn. Every man looks at porn. My dad had Playboys. My 6 hours a day on Pornhub is no different. Ask your wife what she thinks. But that's rationalization. And then victim mentality. What do they say in AA meetings about victims, Tami? Pour me a drink. So sex addicts, any kind of addict can do that. Pour me a drink. So we tell these lies in our own head to justify our behavior. So we have competing tapes in our heads. We have the shitty committee, the shame going back and forth. And then we have our little denial committee, coming up with these excuses. And what we do is we tell secrets and lies to ourselves and then to everybody else. We do it partly so we won't get in trouble, partly so we won't hurt our loved ones if what they don't know can't hurt them. That's part of our denial. Mostly to protect our addiction, because addiction, the nature of addiction is it is the most important thing in our lives, which is why we're able to lie to ourselves. We have to, because if we see the truth, then we'll have to stop. So that's just some quick stuff about denial. So any questions about denial, feel free, or if you want to share some of your own, feel free. Type your questions into the Q&A feature, and Tami and I will be happy to answer them, and we have lots of time, so type in lots of questions.
Ooh. But I was laughing, I couldn't get my unmute fast enough, but I had someone on the phone. Today has been lots of phone calls day, and I had someone on the phone today who was calling, and he needs help, but he's telling me all the reasons why, oh, I can't take 2 weeks. Oh, I can't fly. I'm like, we've had clients even during COVID from all over the US. We've had clients from outside the US, so I was just like, I was like, well, when you're ready, when things are bad enough, call me, so but it's unfortunate. But I was talking to a colleague a little while ago, and I was like, my brain still thinks different, and I have learned in recovery to think, to understand that I'm thinking different. But all that justification, well, I deserve this, or the the poor me's, blame shifting. I talk to a lot of partners, and they're, for convenience sake, I'll use he, addict, she, partner, just for pronouns. So anybody can be an addict, anybody can be a partner. So, but for expediency. So, he's blaming me. He's, and I was like, and there's nothing you can do or not do that will change what he's going to do, and we have choices. If somebody, if I've gained 3 pounds, my husband's offended, he could say, we could do a healthier diet. Let's go for a walk. We could do something different. We can have a conversation about it. It isn't like, well, therefore I get to go on a hookup app. I get to go, look at porn or whatever. And what I've been really sad the last couple of days too, because there's a couple of people that are so entrenched in their addiction, and they're losing family. Like, people are going to divorce them. It's going to happen. And at the end of the day, at the end of life, I thought, so they'll have this series of hookups and whatever, but there won't be meaningful connection, with somebody who cares about them, that they can look in each other's eyes and go, this person knows me intimately, and, and cares about me. And I find that incredibly sad, and that addiction gets to win, in that one, instead of recovery. Like I said, my brain still thinks, a little wonky, but I live in my recovery. I don't live in my addiction. And I'm really clear about that I'm, I understand, and I have a daily reprieve, all of those things, and I do work on, I don't go, oh, I got this, and, it's in my hip pocket. I think it's an ongoing process, and I'm working towards that. But the benefits of doing this, I don't live in shame. I don't let, like we were talking about at the beginning of this, little shame moments. They're little shame moments. We figure out how to get out of that. We're not like drenched in it all the time. So getting out of denial is a gift. So.
Yeah, one of the things that some therapists will do is have people write their eulogy, just to get them.
That's a good one.
I always ask my sponsees, okay, when you're 85, where are you going to be? Are you going to still be hanging out in the public restroom trying to, or would you like to be sitting on a couch with someone you care about?
Yeah.
I was thinking about two other things. One of the ways that in early recovery that denial will manifest is addicts will say, I can't possibly go to 3 meetings a week. I'm already doing therapy. And oh my God, that's 4 nights a week. I'm like, well, how many nights a week did you act out? Well,
or think about acting out, or
and how many hours? Yeah. But yeah, that's our denial is just so strong. It's, we're still clinging, part of our brain still thinks addiction is more important than fixing our life. And which brings me to the next point, and this is kind of a statement for betrayed partners on the webinar tonight. Betrayed partners always want to know the truth, and they want to know it right now. And generally, it's recommended that you wait for a formal therapeutic disclosure. Come to one of our couples webinars if you want a full explanation of that. But usually a therapeutic disclosure happens somewhere between 3 and 6 months after D-Day. And the betrayed partner will always say, why? Why can't he just write down a list of everything he's done? And it's because his brain is still in lie mode and secret mode. He has to get clear with himself first. It's the same way denial happens. It happens in here, and then it comes out here. is the same way truth happens. It happens in here, and then it can come out. And he's just not ready, or she, or the addict is just not ready to provide a full and honest disclosure right out of the gate. It takes 3 to 6 months of work.
Well, and just having a list of stuff is not necessarily useful, and
Right.
particularly if it's, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's like it's a dump. I've called that the vomit disclosure, because you're getting all this stuff, but a real disclosure, a formal disclosure, is data put together in an organized fashion that isn't emotional, and it isn't, now I've got this stuck in my head, I mean, it's like, I acted, it's unprotected sex X amount of times. I spent this amount of money on my addiction, da, 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 da. And that time when you thought I was going to the conference, or I'm whatever, I mean, like some of those type of details, but the partner's therapist that supports the partner can help gauge what questions really need to be answered. So, the point of disclosure is getting a foundation, to move forward, to level the playing field. Okay, here's where some honesty is, and we can move forward. I had a partner that contacted recently and was asking about, like, we're going to get a divorce, and I need to know this. And I'm like, you're going to get a divorce. It was bad, but you will never get the truth that you deserve or even want. It's going to be it's going to be a shadow version of it, because the addict isn't going to be honest. It's, first of all, it's not recommended for divorces, but they're going to lie. Like, if you got the addict to do it, they're going to still lie, because the whole process has been interrupted, and so at some point you cut your losses, go, this was toxic, I'm moving on, and not be caught up in, I need to know these details in order to heal.
Yeah, if you both want to save the relationship and you both want to do the work, do a disclosure, because it's very important. It gets you both to ground zero, where you both know the full truth. Now we can work on rebuilding honesty and intimacy.
But interestingly, I've had multiple partners who have said, I just know it was bad. I don't need a disclosure. I just know it was bad, and I'm willing to move forward, and I was like, well, it's a very different thing. But I was like, okay, I think that's, if you both can move forward in that manner, and you just, they know enough, they just don't need to, they don't need to know every aspect of it. Great. Whatever is going to move the relationship forward, great. So we do have some questions. I tried total abstinence for many years with 12-step sponsor meetings and support network. After many relapses on my sex and meth addictions, I gave up trying 12 steps in total abstinence. I feel a lot happier and satisfied with my personal life now. I guess I'm doing harm reduction now with only marijuana and sex with just 2 people I know. Not having meth in my life or all those gay hookup sites are major improvements for me. I just want to know your opinion on harm reduction rather than total abstinence approach.
Yeah, I'll go first. With sexual sobriety, total abstinence isn't the goal anyway. The goal, it's much more like an eating disorder. You can't just stop eating because you're a binger. You just try to learn to eat in healthy, life-affirming ways. And that's what we do with our sex life. And, it sounds like this is probably from a gay man, who was probably doing chemsex with meth and sex, which is just debilitating, as you well know, if because you wanted to give it up. But getting sober from chemsex doesn't mean you never get to have sex again. If you're being sexual, you've got a couple people that you know their name, they know your name, you know where they live, they know where you live. Maybe you have a meal once in a while, and then you have sex. I have absolutely no problem with that. Not a big fan of still doing the marijuana. Substance abuse is a slippery slope. So for somebody who is a meth addict to still be smoking pot or drinking, it's very, very, very dangerous. Harm reduction is a nice term, but that's harm delaying, I think. That's asking for a relapse with that. My opinion. Tami?
I'm with you. I like, I hear that you're having sex with two people that you know, and I bet I bet that is like a huge change, because it was probably a whole bunch of people you didn't know. So yeah, like, can you have dinner with them? Can you do something else? I echo what Scott was saying. Really concerned about the marijuana or drinking or any other thing, those are disinhibitors. And so, I mean, if Dr. David was on, he'd give you the whole, information, but it's disinhibiting, and it's very easy to make a poor choice. And the next thing you know, you're going, how did this happen? I've had another relapse. So if the relationship with these two people is working for all three of you, and as long as everybody's honest and everybody knows, great, but would really love to have you, particularly if you're, I'm also wondering if you only, or if you only have sex when you're using marijuana. Do you ever have sex where you're not chemically altered?
Yeah.
That would be interesting to me. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, we often use the term sexual integrity as opposed to sexual sobriety. If you're not keeping secrets, if everybody's okay with the behavior, then you're living in sexual integrity. And I'm a gay man. I know a lot of gay men. Having a couple of bleep buddies is the term. Is not that unusual, and not necessarily. It could be a problem for some people, but not for everybody. The question is, are you keeping secrets? Do you feel bad about it? If you're okay with, if the answer is no, I'm not keeping any secrets, I'm not telling any lies, everybody's fully informed, and we're cool with it, great. But yeah, I would rethink the marijuana big time.
Or any other substance. You mentioned marijuana, so I'm going like, I bet that's a pretty consistent theme. But if you're doing something else, would really love to invite you to, 90 days. No, the chemicals, I would invite actual abstinence, but, if both of the people that you're having sex with know and are okay, then, but if you're keeping secrets from one of them, or they don't know about each other, etc., being upfront makes integrity. So.
Yeah.
Okay, one, denial minimization. I made a decision a long time ago that I would look at porn instead of cheat on my partner, because as a man, I knew I would want to have sex with other women. That's absolutely denial and minimization. And justification, gosh, it's like, look at how much better this is. I'm just looking at porn, so no one's hurt by this. So
yeah, and I well, not with women, but I use that one. If I look at porn and masturbate, then I won't want to go out and pick up prostitutes. I use that one.
Yeah, of course. That's like, it's so much. And then
and what that ignores, by the way, is the whole purpose of addiction is to numb out and escape from the stress and emotional discomfort of life. And it really doesn't matter if I'm drinking beer or scotch or smoking dope or shooting heroin. I'm escaping. And it really doesn't matter if I'm looking at porn or having an affair with the neighbor or picking up prostitutes or masturbating in public. I'm still engaging the part of my brain that disengages the thinking part of my brain. So yeah, I mean, we can rationalize all we want, but we're just playing semantics.
Well, and this is at the end of the, like, this is what I was talking about. So I'm going to choose this behavior over being in a connected relationship with a person who actually cares about me. I will choose this. And I subbed in on the Betrayed Partner group last week, and there's gut-wrenching reactions from partners who are betrayed by that, and I won't share details, but like, I'm like, so they're feeling bad about themselves because they don't look like that. And if he wants to do that instead of have sex with me, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, nothing is wrong with you. It's him. But that's, that's where they go. So that justification and that, it's not hurting anybody isn't true.
And just to kind of look at that from the other side, I talk to men sometimes, particularly guys who've had affairs, they've lots of affairs. Was she as attractive as your wife? Oh no. Was she nicer than your wife? No. Was she smarter? No. Was she funnier? No. Then why? And your wife is sitting here feeling less than, you know, and they can't answer that question. They don't know because it's the addiction. So.
So the next question is, how are shame and grief play a role in denial?
Good question. Actually, when I teach the lecture on denial at our men's work groups for sex and porn addicts, I actually open up with a discussion of shame and guilt, and then we have a class on grief and loss later. But I talk about shame and guilt before denial because it really is integral. Shame is the feeling that I am wrong, I'm defective, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough. No one could ever love me as I am. Guilt is I did something wrong and I don't want to do that again, so I think I'll change my behavior in the future. That's guilt. Guilt is a good emotion to feel. Guilt motivates change. Shame is quicksand. Shame is, I'm a horrible person, I do horrible things, there's nothing I can do about it. So why try? Shame is, if I'm doing something that comes from my shame center, the driving force for all addictions is shame. I am ashamed of me. Which is why I can't turn to Tami when I'm having a bad day and say, Tami, I'm having a really bad day. I'm having this feeling and this feeling. Can you help me work through this? I can't do that because I am afraid that Tami will reject me, because that is what I learned as a child. And as a child, I internalized that. My mother was very inconsistent and my father was just emotionally absent. Lovely people. And I get along great with them now after a lot of work. But I did not get my needs met as a child, and I learned I could not trust the people who were supposed to love me to meet my needs when I turned to them. So as a child, who can I blame that on? They're my parents. They're perfect. I blame it on me. So then I developed this shame, and I don't want anybody to know the truth about me because I'm ashamed of me. If you knew the real me, you would run screaming. Get away from him. And that is still my default setting in the brain. The shitty committee tells me how awful I am constantly. And so of course I'm going to keep secrets about sexual things, drug things, alcohol things, my need to numb out. I'm not going to turn to Tami to get my needs met. I'm going to turn to the bottle or the drugs or the porn or the prostitute or whatever. And then I'm going to keep that secret because she will judge me and leave me and never speak to me again, because that's what my shame is telling me. Whereas if I really went to her and said, Tami, I'm really struggling with alcohol and drugs and I've been looking at a lot of porn and I'm so sorry. I know this is hurting our relationship. I need some help. If she loves me, she'll help me or she'll help me get help. But I can't trust that as an addict because the shame. So the shame pushes me into denial. And grief plays a similar role. We don't want to feel that pain, so we numb out, and again, we keep the secrets, or otherwise we'll have to tell you the truth about our pain.
And we'd have to own the truth about our pain, like we'd have to experience it, so if I keep pushing it off and I keep so we talk about addiction being very compartmentalized. So like this silo doesn't touch that silo, and we keep everything, and we're lying to ourselves and we're lying to everyone else. But yeah, the shame and it is. Kristen Snowden did a great webinar on shame as well, and she talks about, it does not serve any purpose. It is not helpful. It is not motivating. It just it keeps us in a spiral and keeps us from doing and being who we want to be. But and grief, there is so many. When I'm talking to couples, I talk about grieving the loss of what you thought you had. A partner thought I had this great person that I'm marrying or connected with, and we've been married, X amount of years, and I thought we had this great marriage. And so now it's grieving the loss of what we thought we had, what we should have had, all of that. And that's a very real experience, both for the addict and for the partner. And it's part of the process. It's not fun. And so as addicts, we absolutely want to, go the other way and go, oh, don't want to touch those uncomfortable emotions, shame, grief, any of those, loss, abandonment, trauma, it's neglect. Scott was talking about when there isn't bandwidth for the child in, to grow up in a safe way. Of course, we figure out how, that we're bad, we're the problem, and I have to dissociate in some way. So addiction makes perfect sense as a great escape.
Yeah, the interesting thing about grief is after D-Day, after discovery, both sides, both partners have a lot of grief, but it's different grief. The betrayed partner is grieving the relationship that she or he thought they had, and who, their belief in who the other person was or they thought was, and everything in the whole relationship comes into question from moment one. When did you start lying to me? Were you always cheating on me? That time we went to, wine country and made love under the olive tree, were you thinking about me or were you thinking about her? Beautiful moments are tainted. Even whether they should be or not, beautiful moments are tainted. The whole relationship is tainted, which is why this full disclosure is so important. So you can get back to ground zero and work forward. Meanwhile, the addict is grieving the loss of his addiction.
Good point.
Because the addiction was, and I hate to say this, but more important than the relationship. It was the most important thing in his life. If it wasn't, he wouldn't have done it, because he knew, on some level, every addict knows this is a bad idea, particularly, when you're in a relationship with someone you love and you're cheating on them one way or another. So we have to grieve that loss of our coping mechanism, our time filler, our best friend, our ticket out of pain. We've lost it. And then we realize, what else have I lost? I may have lost a promotion at work. I may have lost a career. I may have lost countless relationships. I may have lost, I could have been president, and, not now. Look in my closet. No way. How much money did I not make? Did I not get a good job coming out of college because I was too busy looking at porn and my grades stunk? Did I not get into law school or med school? All of these, there's a lot of grief with all that. And it just kind of, it pops up at random times. I mean, I'm almost 20 years sober, and my grief about missed opportunities still pops up sometimes, which is, anyway, that's
interesting. And, I love it when, we get calls and opportunities to help, people who are younger, they're in their 20s, and they get the opportunity to shift things and do things differently. Whatever age, it's never too late to get, I don't want anybody to go, well, I'm older. No, get recovery now, because you can have it different. And again, at the end of my life, I want, I want, the important things are going to be the true and meaningful connections I have with people. It's not going to be, all the disconnected things, all the escape, all the non-feeling things. When I first got into recovery, I don't remember what meltdown I was having, but it was one, and someone said, what are you feeling? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm just feeling, and I hated it. Now, the point is, not only did I squelch all the negative feelings, I squelched all the good feelings too. Because there's no filter on us that, just escape the bad ones. I'm numbed out, so I'm escaping all the time. I'm missing out on all the good stuff as well. So, that's not who I want to be. So, but I do really like it when we have the opportunity to help, at the earliest point, rather than, well, I'm going to go experiment for another, 2 years or whatever. So. next question. How do I get out of the poor me mindset? I have weekly check-ins with a recovery friend, and I often talk about my parents and family of origin trauma. I get self-conscious that I'm ruminating too much and that I should get over these memories of childhood neglect. I've been in therapy for a while, but I feel stuck. I know that healing can't happen in isolation, but I find myself avoiding any social interactions for fear of being that exhausting friend.
You want to go first?
Well, I was thinking, so what I hear is trauma, and I have a great therapist, and I've seen her a few times, even during COVID. And I personally really like EMDR, and so she's given me tools. She was talking me through it, but I did tapping, and I can do that with a positive message. So that was really helpful to me in that more, like, I got on a session and I didn't even know I was having one of those things, disconnected, but she helped me through that. But I also hear lack of gratitude, and one of the things that I had to start very early in recovery was having a gratitude list. And like, I literally I had to write down at least 3 things to be grateful for every single day. And at first it was hard, and then it got easier. And Scott knows this. I have struggled during COVID with lack of choices and feeling like it's all happening to me. That is not a good mindset for me. And I went back to doing gratitude. I'm making sure that I'm finding multiple things every day on which to be grateful for. So what I was thinking with this is, yes, you had stuff, but I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful you're working on this. I'm grateful you're connecting with a recovery friend. I'm grateful you're working with, you're working towards something. But that stuck feeling, honor that. To me, honor that. But ask for professional help on those particular things. That's very real. Enid Gray wrote a great book. Scott knows about this too. Neglect, the Silent Abuser. I have it handy. I'll dig it when he talks. But like, it's very powerful. So honor what you're feeling, but get the support you need to get unstuck is my hope for you. So Scott?
Yeah, family of origin trauma, we all have it to some degree, whether it's overt trauma or covert trauma or neglect, which is super covert. It's the lack of something as opposed to something. But it all has the same impact. And I don't want to get too deep into trauma, but neglect is one of those things where people will tell you, no, I had my parents, they were never mean to me, they were never this, they were never that. I had a great childhood. And I'm like, well, did they ever hug you? No. Did you ever have the talk with them? No. Did they ever say I love you? No. That's abuse. It's a form of abuse. So it sounds like yours, yeah, great book.
Neglect, the Silent Abuser. And I would have said I had great childhood, da 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 da, and I read this and went, but it also talks about how to recognize and heal from childhood neglect. So Enid Gray wrote the book. I would invite you to consider that. But
and there's a great book by Christine Courtois called "It's Not You, It's What Happened to You," and that's about more of the straight up trauma stuff, the stuff we think about when we hear the word trauma. But it sticks around. It colors our entire lives. If our parents knew what they were doing to us, they would be so upset with themselves. But it happens, and it's not just parents; it's teachers and siblings and kids at school and coaches and whatever, babysitters. And trauma work, trauma work with addiction is interesting. Like at our center, we always want to acknowledge. Stop eating papers. I have a cat. We always want to acknowledge that the guys we treat have trauma. They all show up with trauma. But we also know that now is probably not the time for us to dig too deep into it. What we really want to do right now is get the guys through their denial and get them stabilized with a plan for moving forward as sober people. And then at some time down the line, when they have the ego strength and solid enough sobriety, then we start digging into the trauma. But it sounds like, you've been around for a while, you've been in therapy. I wouldn't worry so much about being that friend. When I start to worry about being that guy who only calls when I need something, I make sure I call when I don't need something and say, hey, how are you doing? Oh, is there anything I can help you with?
Great point.
Yeah.
If I'm of service to someone else, then I'm not just thinking, poor me, poor me.
Yeah, and which is another AA saying, you want to build self-esteem, do esteemable things, and that means being of service to other people. So just give as much as you get, that's it. But as far as getting out of the poor me mindset, um, Brene Brown talks about shame, which is what that is to a certain extent, or it's the result of shame, or it comes from shame often. And she talks about it thrives in the darkness, it withers in the sunlight. You have to get it out. Well, that feelings like that, those they're not necessarily negative feelings. I don't like the word negative when attached to feelings. All feelings are telling us something, so they're positive in that regard. But they're not so much fun feelings like poor me, my life stinks. You got to get it out. Go to a 12-step meeting and share it with your friend, and make sure that you're willing to listen when they're struggling, and to say, gosh, I've been there, and that's the way you get out of being the exhausting friend, is just making sure they can exhaust you too.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, absolutely honor what happened. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're bitter. I mean, that was the word that they used, and all of this stuff happened to this person, and and I shared that I really hoped that they got help, because otherwise, so with this particular situation, it was like this much of this person's life was stolen by an addict. And I was like, so if you remain bitter, then the next period of time goes in the same category. And so kind of like empower, what can we do differently that will help us move forward in a different way? And you're resilient, you're still here. I mean, so while it was bad and there were bad things that happened, look at what has happened, what you have found in you, the strengths that you have that have gotten you to this point right now, and where can you, take your next step. So.
Yeah, and I'll go back to Brene Brown with that and reiterate something Tami said about gratitude. Brene Brown got famous because she did research on happiness, and she studied thousands of people, along with various grad students, and just looking for the difference between happy people and unhappy people. And what she found one difference, and the difference is that happy people are grateful for what they have. Whatever's going on in their lives, they find a way to be grateful for what they have. They don't focus on what they don't have or what they can't do. They focus on what they do have and what they can do. And that's the difference between happy people and unhappy people. So yeah, I do a gratitude list every single day, and I make the people I work with do a gratitude list every single day, because it works. You can't be grateful and unhappy at the same time. We just are not that complex. Our brains are, no.
Yes, they are mutually exclusive. I love math stuff. They are mutually exclusive. You cannot, they do not overlap. You cannot, I was less than thrilled, because like all I feel like I'm doing is running. I haven't been able to do anything else. So, and then I was like, I have to be intentionally grateful when I go out running. Now it's Arizona, it's been summer, it's been unpleasant to be out running, and I have made a point of looking for things to appreciate. And I've taken some pictures of amazing flowering cacti. I have taken pictures of the hot air balloons. I have been intentional in looking for moments to be grateful, even if I'm, sweating buckets. So. Okay, so next question.
Sweat. Tami is way too much of a lady to sweat.
I glow a lot. Trust me. You can bring out my shirt with glow lately. So, okay. What are some tools and tips that you use when you experience shame? Oh, this is a great question.
Yeah. Ask us some more questions, by the way.
Yes, please.
Tools, tips that you use when you experience shame. the big thing for me is what I just talked about. I need to find somebody empathetic who will listen to me when it's, and yesterday I had I'll tell this around myself again. So there are two conferences, and they're both pronounced ICAD. One of them is ICAAD, and the other one is ICADD. And I recorded a presentation for ICADD, and it was supposed to be up, and I wanted to, log onto the website and, see what they wrote about my presentation and see my pretty face and get a little ego boost. And so I logged on to the site and looked at the conference agenda, and I was not listed. And Dr. Rob was listed. And I thought, I knew he had done a presentation for this same place. And I started to feel shame. I was like, oh my God, I sent it in, this recording of me, and they didn't like it. And there must have been something wrong with it, and I'm not good enough. And I went spiraling. And it took me half a day to reach out to Tammy with an email saying, hey, do you know anything about this? And of course, she was super busy. So I said, why don't you email them? I wanted her to do it for me. And she did the right thing, which was, why don't you check with them? So I, like 2 hours after that, I finally broke down and sent the email. And the woman said, well, you're right here on the website. Can you send me a screenshot of what you're seeing or not seeing? So I did. And she said, oh, honey, you're looking at the wrong iCAD. I was like, oh my God. And she sent me the link, and I was like, oh, I am so embarrassed. But, I had to do two things. Number one, I had to talk to somebody and have them tell me what to do. And then I had to fact check, which is the other thing that works with shame, is fact checking. And once I fact checked, I found out that I'd been living in shame for 6 hours, needlessly, because what I wanted to see was there. I was just looking in the wrong place. And often talking to another person about the shame I'm feeling leads to fact checking. I can sit in group therapy is so powerful because of shame. I can spill my deepest, darkest, most shameful secret, and everybody in the room is nodding, and they're feeling it with me, and they've been there, and somebody will say, oh, I have exactly the same thing, and nobody runs screaming from the room. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and I was thinking, the story I'm telling myself. So when if I'm in that moment, I'm like, first of all, I hang out with all these amazing people. So I was out running. This was a few months ago, but I thought of something, and I thought, oh, and this is an old message. I'm such an idiot, immediately if I do something, I am such an idiot, unredeemable, and I'm human. I make lots of mistakes, and most hours of most days I'm able to kind of go, well, that wasn't my finest moment, but it doesn't take on that shame of I am not worthy. It's like, oh, that wasn't such a hot move, but okay, how can I fix this, make amends, do whatever. But in that particular moment, I was, into the I'm an idiot. And then I was thinking, oh, my friend Kristen Snowden talks about how shame is so not helpful. And why am I in this shame? And what are practical things I can do? So during my run, I got myself into, when I get back, I'm going to check I thought I missed something on the calendar, the day before and whatever. And I hadn't, but this whole run, I'm concentrating, at least I was otherwise engaged in not thinking about the running, but I was, thinking about what an idiot I am and how am I going to fix this? And, I'm so embarrassed, the whole thing, with that. But what I have also found is, the story I'm telling myself. So with Scott, I could say, Scott, the story I'm telling myself when you didn't pick up the phone is that you are mad at me, and all that. And he could go, I'm sorry, I'm really busy. I was putting my new cat cottage together, So we have matching cat cottages.
We do.
This is what we're doing. We're doing cat cottages. So
this is what we do when we're not talking to you. We
yes.
shop on Amazon for cat
cottages. Yeah. So but and I'd go, oh, it isn't about me. He actually has other things to do in his life. But it is so it really helps me to just be curious and not take it all personally. But, I want to honor what Scott was saying too. It's like, okay, for 6 hours, like in addiction, we are 100% 24/7, even while we're sleeping, living in shame. And so unless we're in our addiction, and then we're just getting ready to have the next bout of shame. So for 6 hours, he was uncomfortable, but I bet the next time something like that happens, maybe it'll only be 4, so.
It'll be 6 minutes.
There you go.
I'm a pretty good learner with
there you
that
go.
stuff now.
Yeah, that's
20
good.
years
So
into this.
yeah.
Another tool, particularly for longer term shame issues, is affirmations. David and I talk about affirmations at least every second or third week. If I've been unfaithful, and I don't want to do that anymore, my affirmations, I say them as if they are true in the present moment and moving forward. So, my character defect is infidelity. The affirmations that I might put forth are, I am faithful to my partner. I am a loving husband, and I value my relationship above all else. I would come up with like 3 of those, and I write them down on a little sticky note. I post them on the bathroom mirror. I say them out loud in the morning. I say them out loud at night. And if I remember, I do it at lunchtime or dinner time as well. And that will help with shame. It sounds hokey. We all picture.
No, those are practical tools. Yeah. No, I've got. I mean, like if you saw my computer, where do I spend the most time? On my computer. So I spend less time in the bathroom mirror. I've got Post-it notes around my computer, and it's, it's people I want to remember that. So going back to the one we talked about before, I have people that I want to actively think about, and say, positive things for them. And so, I've got names, for a variety of reasons, and that's one thing. Then I've got, so Mark Anthony Lord did Love That I Am. And that was one of his definitions of higher power. Love that I am. I wrote that one down and put that on my screen, because that's a good one for me to pay attention to as well. So, they're hokey, but, for a mind that wants to go sideways, a little Post-it note, who cares? I have decorative ones. They look kind of cool. So,
and when you do affirmations, by the way, stick with them for like 30 days. If I'm working on something, I'll write the affirmations out, and I do the affirmations for 30 days because I need to hear it twice a day for a month. I need to look in the mirror. I like the mirror because I can look at myself while I'm doing it, which was so hard when I was in early recovery and so shame-based, because it was just, and so in denial and such a liar. It was so hard to believe myself. So, yeah.
I had to do that. I remember that, now that you mentioned that too. I had in treatment.
Oh yeah.
It was horrible. I had to look in the mirror, and I was supposed to look at myself, and that was like, painful.
Yeah, just looking at ourselves.
Yes, that I had to actually look at myself, and I had to say, that I loved myself and I was worthy of love. And it was incredibly, I mean, I don't know how long it took me to actually be successful of kind of like glancing at myself, and, it was hard, and that's all shame, because you had mentioned earlier, Scott, too, that if they really knew who I was, and, we were talking about intimacy, earlier, and we were on another meeting, but we're talking about intimacy is really, about being seen. It's not about, it's not just about sex, but I was so afraid of people actually seeing me, because I knew if they really saw me, they wouldn't like me. And now I've learned that, not everybody's gonna like me, and that's okay. But if I'm true, I love the name of our company, Seeking Integrity. I do seek my own personal integrity. We as a company seek integrity. And if people don't like who I am, that's okay. That isn't about me. We're just not a fit. That's okay, as long as I'm true and being as true as I can to living in that integrity.
And when we're vulnerable and show our true selves, people can get to know us and appreciate us. And like Tami said, not everybody loves me. Okay. Usually the people who don't love me, I don't much love them back either. So we're cool. But I find that when I'm vulnerable with people that I care about, they respond with empathy and love and vulnerability of their own, and we become closer. And this is something I got in recovery that I had no idea even existed. My relationships with people are so much closer now and so much more into men, women, everything, because I don't have any secrets and they don't feel like they need to keep secrets from me. I mean, I'm sure I don't know everything about everybody, and not everybody in my life knows everything about me, but I'll tell you, some of the people in my life know everything about me and vice versa. Um, and and nobody, I mean, when I told my most shameful secrets to some of my friends, I had a batch of them and I'd known them for a couple of years and we were getting close. I was like, okay, I got to tell them all the dirt. And they all looked at me and said, okay, should we go out to lunch now? And I was like, what, you just want to go to lunch now? And they're like, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Let's go to lunch, And then we spent, the lunch kind of processing and talking, and they would share some of their own crap. And, and it was a really powerful bonding thing that I got in recovery. Didn't sign up for that, trust me. I just wanted my consequences to go away. But the gifts of recovery are endless and boundless, I think, in that respect.
But because if you hold that piece of you, they don't know that, and they can like you, but you know that they don't really like you. And so you're never as connected as you can be if you are willing to step into that vulnerability. And sometimes you're going to get burned, and I have at various times, and every single time I have intentionally thought, I will take the hurt of being burned, because the opposite of that would be to not be willing to step into that and not be connected to people. So sometimes I'm going to get burned, but for the most part, I'm going to have these connections with people in a very healthy way, that are, what's meaningful to me in my life. So,
we got a question. Just one last question. Yeah.
Okay. My husband is doing the 90 days of celibacy at his therapist's recommendation. What if I'm not ready to have sex with my husband at the end of the 90 days? We are currently living separately. Rock on. It's one of those where if you're not, until you believe he's trustworthy, until there's a path for it. We talk about, kind of, what are the steps to, and here's the deal. Intimacy, like I just said, intimacy doesn't mean sex, like, can you hold hands while you're, sitting on the couch watching television? You're not living together. So getting back together again and having sex sounds unsafe, so what are you going to need to see? There's nothing magic with 90 days other than, like, it's a period of time, and
he's still figuring out what is healthy sex for him and what is not. He has no idea right now if he's in that 90 days.
Yes.
And, sex is not relationship glue anyway. Plenty of couple, when you're 80, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to be having a lot of sex, but you might really love the person sitting next to you as you watch the evening news. When you're comfortable sitting next to him watching the evening news, maybe you'll be ready to think about sex again, but get there first.
Yeah. Well, and what are the steps that you need? Dr. David often talks about sensate, so, is it rubbing feet? Is it whatever it is? But, but if there's no trust, Dr. Rob talks about this all the time. Why would you want to have sex with somebody you don't trust? So unless he's, created, like, if you can see that he's really making progress and he's doing it. But I've had couples where they're going, well, it's 90 days. Let's do it. And to me, that is so callous.
And often the addict is not comfortable with it either. If one or both of you is not comfortable, you should not be having sex. And it's perfectly okay to say, no, I am not ready. There's more work to be done.
Yeah. Or I'm not ready. This is what I'm, have a plan. This is what I'm, this is what I think I will need, or this is how I, just know, but is it no, here's what I'm looking for. Here's how we can rebuild this. Here's a path back to that. But, like, you're not even living together right now. So, like, it seems like first step. Can
Yeah.
you date? You know,
Yeah.
like, can you date? Not even, you know, he still stays away, but can you have dinner together? You know, can you start with having coffee outdoors, of course, but, you know, like, get a plan if you're considering it of what that would look like. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. All right.
we're
That
out
was,
of time.
we're out of time.
Thanks,
Tammy,
Scott.
thank you for filling in for David. Thank you.
Yep, I actually really do enjoy doing this with you. So anytime, just let me know.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for hanging with us. We appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll be back next week. David will be here next week.
David
So,
will be here. Yeah.
all right. We'll see you then.